Thanks so much for the opportunity to address such a distinguished audience at this annual meeting of ALIDE Curaçao 2022. It is indeed highly relevant today to focus on innovative technologies and digitalization to boost Latin American and Caribbean development and its finance. In fact, innovative technologies have long been regarded as springboards for economic development around the world. In a clear case of technological leapfrogging, mobile phones gave poor people in many developing countries access to telecommunications without a need for costly investments in landlines and other infrastructure. Furthermore, the ensuing connectivity provided unique opportunities to farmers, fishermen, and small manufacturers to arbitrage price differences across global markets, increasing their income as a result. Nevertheless, it has been a perennial challenge to identify transformational opportunities to stimulate a sustainable and inclusive economic development that could allow overcoming many of the existing shortcomings in our region, unlike certain geographies in Asia and Africa. For Latin America and the Caribbean, to successfully ride the increasingly turbulent waters of technology development, the focus needs to go beyond adapting available technologies such as artificial intelligence or 5G. The approach should include managing emerging technologies with the goal of addressing present and future needs from both our region and the world. The last decades have brought us globalization, free trade policies, and even the birth of the modern shipping container, which has allowed companies to move products at a relatively low cost from factory to factory as they are being assembled. Through the system, countries across the world have been able to develop their own niche within the broader supply chain. Let me point semiconductors, crucial elements in the manufacturing of consumer electronics, such as smartphones, cameras, and computers. COVID-19 outbreaks and manufacturing plants impacted the auto industry heavily, as semiconductors are needed for everything, from entertainment systems to power steering. The supply crunch and shortage of chips forced car manufacturers to cut production and delivery targets, leading to a number of profit warnings. Countries are now embracing a new approach to making semiconductors. Japan, China, South Korea, and the European Union have all started or plan to invest billions of dollars to develop their own chip-making capabilities. The U.S. is currently evaluating a plan to spend more than $52 billion to boost the American chip industry, which is supposed to jumpstart domestic tech manufacturing and make the country tech much less dependent on imports from Taiwan and South Korea. Reliably manufacturing semiconductors depends on a stable world, one where there are no wars or pandemics. Because viruses replicate by the billions daily, The coronavirus we met more than 2 years ago is not the same plague driving infections today. Furthermore, the unprovoked invasion of Ukraine by Russian forces has stopped production of neon, a critical gas that is required for the lasers that are used in chip production at factories that used to satisfy half of the global market. Building up semiconductor manufacturing capacity to meet the demand of the Latin America and the Caribbean market should no longer be a pipe dream for our region. For that, we can only look at India, which late last year announced a $10 billion program to help fund the domestic production of semiconductors over the following 5 to 6 years. India still spends $25 billion a year importing every single chip it uses. How can they break this cycle of dependence? They are already taking steps in this direction. In February this year, mining giant Vedanta signed a pact to form a joint venture with Taiwan-based Foxconn to produce semiconductors locally and achieve India's goal of gaining chip independence. Shouldn't Latin America and the Caribbean take similar steps to capitalize on this geopolitical imperative? Lithium, a silvery white alkali metal discovered over 2 centuries ago, has recently experienced a boom in popularity due to its utilization in ion lithium batteries, the preferred power source for electric vehicles. Our region has an important involvement in this respect, having more than half of the world's deposits of the metal in the South American lithium triangle, Argentina, Bolivia, and Chile. This implies important opportunities for these countries and partners in terms of promoting local value-added battery production industries. The challenges for our countries to take advantage of this opportunity are very familiar. Battery production requires high capital investments and very sophisticated technology and labor force. Nevertheless, what sort of transformational opportunity for the region wouldn't require high capital investment and a well-trained labor force? Our region does have a stake in this global phenomenon. From well-established lithium-producing countries like Chile and Argentina to countries with recently mapped resources and reserves such as Bolivia and Mexico, to locations typically not associated with lithium such as Peru, my native country, exploration for conventional deposits of white gold is accelerating across the region. Furthermore, announcements about new potential capacity are expected this 2022 as some of these early stage projects become feasible. Rechargeable batteries have experienced a rapid rise in popularity due to their growing importance in sustainable and more environmental friendly technologies. Today, China produces nearly two-thirds of the world's lithium-ion batteries and controls most of the world's lithium processing facilities. Will developed economies continue to passively rely on these modus operandi for an industry that is expected to drive economic and climate progress? It is time for the region to step up to the challenge and transform the white gold dream into a reality. The introduction and evolution of cryptocurrency and blockchain technology have created further interest in cashless societies and digital currencies. Central bank digital currencies, CBDCs, are digital tokens issued by a central bank. Many countries are developing CBDCs, and some have even implemented them. Today, many central banks in our region look towards CBDCs as tools to promote greater financial inclusion, efficiency, and safety of the payments system. Ecuador was the first country to roll out its own digital currency back in 2014. The Bahamas launched its own CBDC in 2020. Today, over 50% of central banks around the world say CBDC is likely or possible in the medium term. Why not? Almost half of the people in Latin America and the Caribbean lack a bank account. Chile and Mexico announced they will have a CBDC in the near term. Peru, meanwhile, is working on a digital currency jointly with India, Singapore, and Hong Kong. The technology underlying CBDCs opens up boundless possibility for novel forms of economic policy to sustain the region's urgently needed development. For example, CBDCs will enable direct payments without the need of intermediaries. Furthermore, in a region where mobile phone penetration is only 69%, CBDC payments will be completed even without an internet connection. This can certainly contribute to the formalization of the shadow economies that power many livelihoods in the region. CBDCs will simplify and reduce the cost of cross-border payments, particularly relevant in Latin America and the Caribbean, given the reliance on remittances by the least advantaged people. CBDC money will also be outfitted with conditionals such as that only a certain amount can be spent per day on certain goods and services, or expiration dates if not spent by a certain date. These tools can certainly be helpful to encourage targeted consumption. CBDCs will tap into a new infrastructure to enable new avenues for client service expansion. Depending on the ultimate design adopted in our country, banks will be able to develop new digital business models and offer incentive payment and settlement systems. Ultimately, local banks will expand their outreach to previously unbanked and underbanked segments for whom the lack of access to the financial system remains the most significant impediment to their prosperity. Strategically managing emerging technologies guarantees dynamic lenses to evaluate not where the world is today, but where the world is headed in the next decades. As these examples have shown, opportunities can always be found in our region. Capitalizing on these opportunities, meeting the present and future demand of goods and services from our region and the world requires ultimately joint efforts by the public and private sectors in a dialogue I look forward to seeing kick-started through this important event. Thanks so much for your attention.